When I turned 65, something inside me shifted. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, powerful way that only comes with age and reflection. I began to see time differently. I began to feel life differently. And most of all, I began to choose peace over people. If you're over 60 and have ever felt drained by relationships that once gave you joy, or overwhelmed by the noise of the world around you, this message is for you. Stay with me. It's about growing wiser. What I am about to share might speak directly to something you've been feeling, but haven't quite said out loud. Together, let's create a space where peace is honored and your story is finally heard. Because this stage of life is not just about growing older. And if this resonates with you, or if you've ever felt this quiet pull toward simplicity, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us. Let me begin with the first reason I avoid people now. We'd give it away freely to jobs, to people who didn't appreciate it, to conversations that drained us, to relationships that no longer fit who we were becoming. Time feels more precious than ever. When we were younger, it felt like time was infinite. But something happens at 65. You wake up one morning and realize, time is the most valuable thing I own. I don't force conversations that go nowhere or hold on to relationships out of habit. And I won't waste it anymore. That's not selfish. It's wisdom. Today, I don't chase every invitation or entertain meaningless small talk just to be polite. I ask myself, does this bring me peace? Does this lift my spirit or weigh it down? Is this how I want to spend the limited time I have left? Because when you realize time is a treasure, you start guarding it like one. The sunrises feel more vivid now. A quiet walk feels more profound. A cup of tea in silence tastes like peace. And suddenly, the loudness of the world becomes easier to turn down. It's not that I've shut everyone out. Far from it. I simply choose who and what I let into my space carefully, intentionally, with love. If you've noticed yourself wanting more silence, more slowness, more intention, it doesn't mean something's wrong with you. I've learned that not every call needs to be returned. Not every text needs a reply. And not every person needs a seat at your table. Because some people don't feed your soul. They just take from it, letting go of those relationships. That's where healing begins. So if you've started to pull back, it means something is finally right. You're finally honoring your time. You're finally choosing you. And that is the beginning of real peace. There's a quiet truth that comes with age. Relationships change, and so do we. At 65, I've accepted that not every relationship is meant to last a lifetime, and that's okay. When I was younger, I clung tightly to every connection. I remembered every birthday, attended every gathering, showed up even when I was exhausted, because I thought loyalty meant never letting go. But over the years, I've learned something vital. Not all relationships are equal. Some nourish your soul, others drain it. Some feel like home, others feel like obligation wrapped in history. And the hardest part? Letting go of people you once loved deeply because the relationship no longer fits the person you've become. It's not always about betrayal or conflict. Sometimes it's just time. Time for distance. Time for space. Time for peace. I've had to step back from friendships that only moved in one direction from me to them. From family members who constantly judged, criticized, or simply couldn't understand the journey I'm on. And for a while, I blamed myself. Did I not try hard enough? Should I have held on longer? But then I realized, letting go isn't giving up. It's growing up. True relationships don't need constant maintenance. They breathe, they ebb and flow. They respect your space, and they thrive on mutual understanding, not guilt, not obligation, and certainly not exhaustion. These days, my circle is smaller, but richer, quieter but warmer. The people who remain in my life are there because they want to be. They see me, hear me, and make space for me just as I am. And I do the same for them. I no longer chase people who leave me feeling unseen. I no longer try to fix what's clearly broken. Instead, I cherish the few souls who bring light into my life, and I let go of the rest. Because sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is release someone with love. Free them from your expectations, and free yourself from the weight of trying to be everything to everyone. If you're in this season too, where your connections are shifting, your priorities are changing, and your heart craves peace more than approval, I want you to know you are not alone. This is part of the journey. It's not about bitterness. It's about clarity. It's about saying no to what drains you and yes to what nourishes your spirit. So go ahead and let go of that friend who always takes but never gives. That family member who only calls when they need something. That social circle that makes you feel lonelier than solitude ever could. Because the love you're looking for, it starts with you. Protect your peace. Choose your people. And let time do its beautiful, quiet work. Let's talk about trust. Because by the time you're 65, trust isn't something you give out freely anymore. It becomes sacred, earned, and more often than not guarded. When I was younger, I gave trust like candy. I believed in the good in people, in their intentions, in their promises. But life has a way of teaching you otherwise. I've been let down by friends who only cared when they needed something. I've been hurt by family members who broke bonds over pride or misunderstanding. And I've seen how easily loyalty can be exchanged for convenience. The pain from broken trust cuts deeper as we age, not because we're weaker, but because we feel more. We've lived enough to know what real connection feels like and what betrayal costs. So now, when someone new enters my life, I don't ask, do I like them? I ask, can I trust them? That's a very different question. But here's something even more powerful. As we grow older, the most important trust we need to build is with ourselves. I've learned to trust my instincts. If something doesn't feel right, I listen. If a conversation leaves me uneasy, I don't brush it off. I don't explain away red flags anymore just to avoid being alone. Because loneliness is nothing compared to the emptiness of being surrounded by people who don't truly care for you. I've had to walk away from people I've known for decades, simply because I could no longer trust them with my time, my peace, or my heart. And you know what? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with protecting your peace. There's nothing wrong with being cautious. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with expecting respect and consistency in return for your trust. Now, I give trust slowly, deliberately, to those who earn it not with words, but with actions over time. It doesn't mean I've closed myself off. It means I've raised the standard. I no longer entertain people who take my kindness for weakness, who show up only when it's convenient, who disappear when I need them most. Instead, I focus on those rare gems, the people who call just to check in, the ones who remember the little things, the ones who show up without being asked. They don't drain me. They fill me. They don't break trust. They honor it. And in return, I show up fully, without fear, without doubt, without holding back. So if you found yourself more cautious, more selective, more protective of who you let in, that's not bitterness. That's wisdom. Trust is precious. Treat it that way. Keep your heart open, but your standards high. And never feel guilty for walking away from someone who made you question your worth. Because at this stage of life, peace is the highest currency. And trust, that's the vault. The world has changed, and I've changed with it. At 65, the contrast between the world I grew up in and the one I live in now feels almost surreal. Things move faster. People seem more distracted. And often, genuine human connection feels like it's fading into background noise. When I was younger, life had a different rhythm. We visited neighbors without texting first. Conversations flowed without being interrupted by phone notifications. We gathered not out of obligation, but because we truly wanted to be together. There was a warmth, a simplicity, a realness that made even the smallest moments feel rich. But now it's different. Everyone's busy. Even family time feels like it needs to be squeezed in between meetings, errands, and deadlines. People scroll more than they speak. They text more than they call. And when we do finally meet face to face, it sometimes feels like everyone's mind is somewhere else. I'm not resisting change. I appreciate what technology brings. I can video chat with my grandkids, reconnect with old friends on social media, or find a recipe in seconds. But I also recognize what we've lost. We've traded presence for productivity, depth for convenience, moments of true stillness for endless digital noise. And that's why I choose to step back, not from the world, but from the rush of it. I protect my peace by choosing what I let in. I turn off my phone when I need to be present. I say no to crowded events where no one really connects, and yes to slow afternoons with people who truly see me. I crave simplicity now. A quiet morning with tea and my favorite book. A walk without earbuds, just birdsong and my thoughts. A one-on-one conversation that lasts for hours without a single glance at a screen. These aren't signs of isolation. They're signs of intention. I'm not avoiding people. I'm avoiding distractions. I'm avoiding noise. I'm avoiding shallow connections that leave me feeling lonelier than being alone ever could. In this stage of life, I've come to see that slowness is a gift, not a weakness. I don't want to keep up with everything anymore. I want to go deeper with something, with a person, with a moment, with myself. Because what the world calls slowing down, I now call waking up. So if you feel out of place in today's hyper-connected, fast-paced world, you're not broken. You're aware. And your desire for a slower, richer, more meaningful life? That's not resistance. It's wisdom. You don't have to chase the noise. You don't have to compete with the rush. You don't have to keep up. You just have to keep true. Because in a world that's constantly shouting, there's deep power in simply being still. Let's talk about solitude, because it's one of the most misunderstood gifts of growing older. There was a time when being alone felt like something to be ashamed of, a sign that I was unwanted, or that something had gone wrong in my life. But now, at 65, I see solitude differently. It's not loneliness, it's liberation. Loneliness is a deep ache, a longing for connection that never quite comes. Solitude is peace, it's clarity, it's the freedom to breathe without trying to be anything for anyone. In solitude, I've found myself again. When the noise of expectations fades, when no one is asking anything of me, that's when I hear the most important voice, my own. I sit with my memories, not in sadness, but in gratitude. I reflect on the journey, what I've lived, what I've learned, what I've let go. And instead of mourning what's gone, I celebrate what remains. The quiet brings me closer to what matters. A sunrise, a bird singing outside my window, the softness of a warm blanket, the smell of freshly brewed coffee. These aren't small things, they're the heart of a meaningful life. And here's something beautiful I've discovered. The more comfortable I've become in my own company, the more present I am with others. I no longer show up out of guilt or obligation. I show up because I want to. And when I do, I bring my full self, not a drained, distracted version of me. Solitude has taught me to love more intentionally, and it's helped me redefine self-worth. Your value doesn't come from how many friends you have or how many invitations you accept. It comes from how deeply you know yourself, from how you treat yourself when no one's watching. If you've ever feared being alone, I invite you to look again. Because solitude isn't emptiness, it's space. Space to heal, to grow, to choose how you want to spend your time and with whom. Solitude gives you room to reset your life, to clear out the noise and ask yourself, what truly matters to me now? And the more you ask that question, the more powerful your answers become. So yes, I avoid people sometimes, but it's not out of anger or judgment. It's out of love. Love for my time. Love for my peace. Love for this chapter of life that I've earned. If you find yourself craving more stillness, more simplicity, more space, honor it. It means you're finally beginning to understand what so many people spend a lifetime chasing. Peace is not out there. It's in here. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to be alone and be whole. So now, let's bring this all together. Why do I avoid people at 65? Not out of bitterness. Not because I've given up on connection, but because I've finally learned to value peace over pressure, authenticity over obligation. For most of my life, I believed my worth was tied to how much I gave, how many people I could please, how available I was, how much I could sacrifice. But now, I see the truth. Life is not about how many people surround you. It's about the quality of the energy you allow into your space. Avoiding people isn't isolation. It's intentional living. And it turns out, I'm not alone in this. I've spoken with friends, peers, neighbors in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, and I've heard the same quiet confession. I just don't have the patience for superficial relationships anymore. I only want real conversations now. I protect my peace like never before. You see, this is not just my story. It's a shared experience. Many of us, as we age, begin to realize something powerful. We're not here to keep proving ourselves. We're not here to stretch ourselves thin. We're here to live deeply, to speak honestly, to love intentionally, and to finally feel at home in our own skin. And that means letting go of draining friendships, letting go of social obligations that don't spark joy, letting go of the pressure to explain yourself to people who don't truly care to understand. This is a sacred chapter of life, a time to slow down, reflect, and embrace what truly matters. It's not about how full your calendar is. It's about how full your heart feels. It's about making time for the things that bring you light, laughter, quiet, nature, memories, stillness, love. You don't owe anyone your energy. You don't need to explain your boundaries. And you are allowed to choose peace over people, if that's what your soul needs. So if you're watching this and thinking, yes, I feel this, then you're not alone. There's strength in stepping back. There's wisdom in protecting your space. And there is freedom in knowing that your value is not measured by how busy you are, but by how deeply you live. Let this be your reminder. It's okay to grow quieter. It's okay to be more selective. And it's more than okay to walk away from what no longer fits your spirit. You've earned this peace. You've earned this chapter. So live it fully. Live it honestly. Live it for you. And if this video has touched your heart in any way, take a moment to reflect. Maybe even share it with someone who's walking a similar path. Leave a comment below. Tell me, what have you let go of, and what have you embraced instead? Because in sharing, we remind each other, we are not alone. We are evolving, and we are just beginning to write the most beautiful chapters of our lives. Stay kind, stay grounded, and never be afraid to choose yourself.